"Move! Everyone get back!" shouted Diego Alvarez, his voice trembling as the thunder of hooves echoed through the narrow village street. People screamed and scattered in every direction, diving behind market stalls, pressing against walls, clutching their children as a massive bull tore through the square like a storm.
Ever wondered where you really come from? Not the stories, but the science. On this channel, we decode real DNA, uncover lost ancestries, and bring ancient genomes to life through cinematic storytelling. If that excites you, subscribe for weekly insights. Like the video to support science-based history, and drop a comment. Your questions help guide what we explore next.
Its muscles rippled beneath a coat the color of deep mahogany. Dust and debris swirled in its wake as it slammed into carts and fences, snorting with wild fury. The ground itself seemed to shake beneath its charge. Diego froze. For a split second, his body forgot how to move. That stance, that glare, that unmistakable scar near its right horn. His breath caught in his throat. "No," he whispered, his chest tightening. "It can't be." It was him. The bull he'd raised with his own hands 7 years ago. The calf he had rescued from the edge of death. The one he had named Bruno. "Bruno!" he shouted, voice cracking. At the sound of his name, the bull's head jerked toward him. The furious stomping slowed. Steam puffed from its nostrils, and for one impossible moment, silence hung heavy in the air. People peeked from behind cars, whispering in disbelief as Diego took a single step forward, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it over the wind. Bruno's gaze locked onto him, eyes wild, confused, but filled with something buried deep beneath the anger. Recognition? Pain? Then the bull let out a low, rumbling sound that vibrated through the ground. It wasn't quite a snort, not quite a growl, something in between. And then, without warning, he charged. "Diego, get back!" someone screamed. But Diego didn't move. He couldn't. Every instinct screamed to run, but his feet were anchored to the past, to the memory of a frightened calf trembling beneath the trees all those years ago. The world seemed to slow. Bruno thundered closer, hooves tearing through gravel, horns gleaming. Diego clenched his fists, his voice breaking as he called out one more time, "Bruno, it's me!" The bull skidded to a halt, inches away. Dust exploded into the air around them. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then Bruno lowered his massive head, breathing hard. His muzzle brushed Diego's shoulder, a warm breath against his skin. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. The beast that had moments ago been a rampaging force of destruction was now quiet, calm, his head gently pressed against the man's chest. Diego's vision blurred with tears. "Hey, old friend," he whispered, voice trembling. "You remember me." 7 years earlier, on a fog-draped morning deep in the hills of Jalisco, Diego had been hiking alone through a quiet stretch of pine forest. It was the kind of morning where even the birds seemed to whisper, where every sound carried. He'd been searching for a stream he'd once fished as a boy when he heard something faint, a muffled cry like a whimper caught in the wind. He stopped, listening. There it was again, soft and broken. Curiosity pulled him off the trail. The sound grew louder as he pushed through the brush, branches snagging his sleeves, the air thick with damp earth and pine. Then he saw it, a tiny calf, barely a few days old, lying in the mud beside a fallen log. Its coat was slick with rain, its legs trembling as it tried to lift itself. One look and Diego's heart twisted. The calf's eyes were wide and scared, pleading in silence. He knelt beside it, brushing away the wet leaves. "Hey there, easy, easy now," he murmured. The calf flinched at his voice but didn't try to flee. Its leg was scraped and bleeding, and its breaths came shallow, quick. He looked around for signs of its mother, but the forest was still, too still. No herd, no sound but the drizzle. "You're all alone out here, aren't you?" he whispered. He took off his jacket and wrapped the shivering animal in his arms, lifting it carefully into his arms. The calf was lighter than he had expected, all bones and tremors. As he walked back toward the road, Diego felt the tiny heart beating weakly against his chest. At home, he made a small pen in the corner of his shed, layering it with old blankets and straw. He cleaned the wound with water and antiseptic, whispering to the calf as he worked, "You're safe now, I promise."
The days that followed were filled with quiet routines. Diego fed the calf with a bottle every few hours, coaxing it to drink. Each time, it grew a little stronger, its eyes a little brighter. He called him Bruno, a name that seemed to fit, strong, proud, but gentle. Soon, Bruno began to follow him around the yard, nudging his leg for attention.
The bond between them formed quickly, almost naturally. Diego found himself talking to the calf as if it could understand him, about the weather, his work, even his dreams of owning a ranch one day. In some strange way, Bruno seemed to listen, responding with soft huffs and curious tilts of his head. Months passed, and Bruno grew from a fragile calf into a powerful young bull. His coat turned glossy and rich, his horns small but sharp. They spent mornings walking the trails together, Diego tossing sticks that Bruno would push along with his nose, snorting proudly. Neighbors would smile, shaking their heads at the sight of a man and his bull walking side by side. Then came the day Diego got an offer he couldn't refuse, a construction job overseas that promised stability and a future he'd long dreamed of. It should have been good news, but it filled him with dread. Bruno had become more than an animal to him. He was family. Diego wrestled with the decision for weeks. Finally, with a heavy heart, he arranged to leave Bruno at his cousin Mateo's ranch, spacious, well-kept, safe. On his last morning, Diego lingered by the pen, resting a hand on Bruno's head. "I'll come back for you," he said softly, "no matter what." Bruno nudged his hand, eyes calm but confused. As Diego walked away, the bull let out a low, mournful sound that echoed through the valley long after he disappeared down the road. Years passed like the slow fading of an old photograph. The world changed for Diego, but the image of that calf never did. While he worked construction in Spain, building towers that scraped the clouds, his thoughts often drifted to the quiet hills of Jalisco, to the soft sound of Bruno's low calls in the morning mist. He told himself he'd return soon, once he'd saved enough, once things were steady. But 1 month bled into another, and 7 years slipped through his fingers like dust. Back home, life at Mateo's ranch had taken a harder turn. The droughts had worsened, and feeding the animals became a struggle. Bruno had grown massive, a beast of muscle and fire, taller than Mateo's shoulder, restless and unpredictable. He was respected by the other bulls, even feared. The gentle calf that once nuzzled Diego's palm had vanished into something powerful and untamed. Still, there were moments that hinted at the creature he used to be. When Mateo walked past with a worn jacket that still faintly carried Diego's scent, Bruno would lift his head, sniffing the air, and let out a low, almost mournful sound before retreating to the shade. He never let anyone touch him. He was impossible to corral, impossible to break. As the years dragged on, the ranch's debts mounted. A local breeder heard about Bruno's size and ferocity and made an offer. Train him as a rodeo bull. Mateo hesitated, thinking of his cousin's words. "Take care of him, please." But the money was too tempting, the bills too heavy. Against his better judgment, he agreed. Bruno's training began under the harsh sun of northern Mexico. He resisted at first, charging fences, breaking posts, throwing off any rider who dared climb onto him. The handlers quickly learned to fear his temper. In the arena, he became a spectacle, unpredictable, explosive, his name whispered with both awe and dread. Within a year, Bruno was a legend on the rodeo circuit, the kind of bull that made seasoned riders hesitate. Yet beneath that raw power, something in him remained hollow. After every performance, when the crowds dispersed and the lights dimmed, he would stand alone in the pen, staring through the slats at the horizon, where the wind carried the faint scent of pine. Somewhere deep inside that massive frame, a memory still lived, the touch of a hand, the sound of a voice saying, "You're safe now." While Bruno fought through fame and fury, Diego's life unraveled in quiet, painful ways. He met a woman named Anna, whose laughter reminded him of summer rain. They built a small life together, simple, steady, filled with plans that never quite came true. Then, in a single winter night, an accident took her away. A drunk driver, a flash of headlights, and then silence. Diego never recovered. The colors of the world drained from him, and everything that followed felt muted and slow. When the company he worked for folded, Diego packed up what little he had left. His body felt heavier than it used to, his spirit quieter. He didn't know what he was searching for, only that he needed to go home. Somewhere, in that dusty corner of his memory, a promise whispered back to him, "I'll come back for you."
He arrived in Jalisco on a gray morning, the air heavy with the smell of rain. The hills looked smaller than he remembered, but the wind still carried the same song. He went straight to the old ranch, hoping to find Mateo. The gate hung crooked, the paint flaked off, and a few tired horses stood by the fence. Mateo's hair had gone gray at the temples, but his eyes still carried the same warmth. When he saw Diego, he froze, then smiled slowly. "You finally made it back." Diego clasped his cousin's hand. "Where's Bruno?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Mateo looked down, rubbing the back of his neck. "He's still here, but he's not the same." "What do you mean?" "He changed, Diego. After they trained him for the rodeo, it did something to him. He's bigger now, stronger, but mean. He's been restless for weeks, breaking fences, attacking the other bulls. I think he's sick." Diego's stomach tightened. "Where is he now?" "He got out this morning," Mateo said quietly. "Ran straight through the lower gate toward the village." The color drained from Diego's face. Without another word, he turned and ran for the truck. The road wound down through the hills, the rain beginning to fall, and in the distance he could already hear the sound of shouting, the chaos of hooves striking pavement. That was where the story began, where the man met the beast he'd raised as a boy. When Bruno stopped inches away, when his breath hit Diego's chest like a furnace, the years between them seemed to collapse. The people around them didn't understand what they were seeing, but Diego did. He saw not a monster, but a lost friend. He slowly reached up, his fingers trembling, and touched Bruno's muzzle. "Easy," he whispered. "It's over." Bruno's eyes softened just for a heartbeat. He let out a low rumble, the same sound he used to make as a calf when he wanted attention. The crowd stood frozen, watching the impossible unfold before them. Diego pressed his forehead gently against the bull's head. "You remember," he said, his voice breaking. "You remember me." Bruno's massive body trembled, then relaxed. His head lowered in what looked like surrender. The danger had passed. The wildness had quieted. And in that still moment, man and bull stood together again, not as captor and creature, but as two beings bound by something deeper than time. The storm had finally passed. The crowd that once trembled in fear now stood in hushed disbelief, watching a sight they'd never forget, a man and a bull, frozen in quiet reunion as the rain began to fall. The drops rolled down Bruno's coat like tears, darkening the deep mahogany fur Diego once brushed with his own hands. The chaos of moments earlier was gone. In its place lingered something almost sacred, a silence that felt alive. Diego rested a hand on Bruno's face, feeling the steady rhythm of his breath, the same rhythm he'd listened to years ago when the calf slept beside his bed. Time had changed everything, yet somehow this connection had survived it all. In the days that followed, the story of that reunion spread through the town like wildfire. People who had run for their lives returned to the streets, replaying what they'd seen again and again. Some called it a miracle. Others said it was proof that love never really fades, it just waits. Diego stayed at the ranch after that. The first thing he did was call the vet, determined to find out why Bruno had turned wild. The diagnosis came as a quiet blow, a disease that explained the pain, the sudden anger, the confusion. But Diego didn't flinch. He cared for Bruno like he had all those years ago, through every long night and every slow morning. The treatment was hard, but slowly the bull began to change. The fire in his eyes softened, replaced by a calm strength. And when Bruno finally stepped into the sunlight again, healthy and gentle, Diego knew the past had come full circle. He'd saved the same life twice, once from the forest and once from despair. Now, if you visit that quiet ranch in Jalisco, you'll still find them, a man and his bull, moving slowly through the fields at dusk. Diego's voice carries softly across the grass, and Bruno walks beside him, his massive head lowered as if listening. To anyone passing by, it might look like an ordinary scene, but to those who know the story, it's something far more, a living reminder that love, once given, never truly leaves. What do you think about their reunion? Do animals really remember the ones who once loved them? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe for more incredible true stories like this one. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.